5.
Congrats.
Perfect.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Self Achievement Network. My name's Dominic. I know it's been about 3 years, but I've got a special guest here that I just could not refuse to interview. This is Jim Miller. Hey Jim, how's it going?
Great, buddy. Great to see you.
Oh my gosh, Jim and I worked on a project together 11 years ago,
Yep.
and Jim has been Jim and I are both retired now.
Yes.
Yeah,
Happily.
yeah. And Jim is a runner. He is a runner. He's been running what for how many years you've been running?
Ran my first marathon in memory of my dad in the year 2000.
Wow. That was a long time ago.
So ran my first marathon when I was 49.
Uh-huh. That's awesome. And so the reason why I decided to interview him, he reached out to me. He says, "Hey, are you still doing the interview?" I says,
Yep.
"Not really, but I'd like to do one." I've actually thought about doing it for a long time. So I'm really
Yes.
glad that you reached out. So we're going to have a little chat here, and Jim is going to tell us about his adventures with marathoning. So before we do that, though, give us a little bit of background about you, where you grew up, just to, and from there, high school, and how you got
Grew
into
up,
the
grew up
hotel.
in grew up in Norfolk, Virginia, military family, spent
Uh,
time in Puerto Rico, and then my dad ended up doing the last few years of service in the Navy in New Hampshire. So I kind of claimed New Hampshire as home.
uh-huh.
Ran high school cross country and track, in high school, ran casually in college, and then just kind of ran to stay in shape. Um, and then my dad passed away in the year 1999
Uh-huh.
from non alcoholic fatty tissue liver disease.
Wow. I'm, I've heard
And
of
I
it.
was very close to my dad. And I wanted to do something beyond just give a nice eulogy. And dear friends of mine in New England said, "You should run the Boston Marathon." And I said, "Well, that's very nice. It's a great idea, but the Boston Marathon is the only marathon in the world where you have to meet a qualifying time in your age group to get into the marathon." And I said, "I'll never hit it. I've never run a marathon. I'm 49 years old."
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "Well, no, if you do it for a charity." Long story short, come to find the American Liver Foundation was one of the sanctioned charities. I signed up with them. In my previous life, I was a fundraiser for a nonprofit organization, so I knew kind of what to do. Went on to be one of their top 3 fundraisers. Back in the day, and it's still kind of a big landmark, anybody who runs a marathon wants to break 4 hours. So I did. I ran Boston, first marathon, age 49, and did it in 3:49:50, and I've been running ever since.
Wow. Wow. And we're talking full marathon. This is the 26-mile
26.2, my friend.
two. Got to have that point two in there.
Gotta have it.
The
Yes,
only marathon I ever ran, Jim, was a 10K.
more than most. More than most.
Well, so you did it with the right intention,
Yep.
and you've been raising money ever since. Do you have any idea how much money you've raised over the years? About ish.
This, this will be, yeah. This will be, I did my first, I went back to Boston and did my 100th. I was in Chicago and did my 200th. So this will be, and there were a couple other in between. This will be my 6th time of running for the American Liver Foundation and doing a fundraising campaign. And by the time I hit the finish line in Boston in April, I think my total will be something like $220,000.
Wow, that is extraordinary.
Well, it's special to me, and what has become even more, the thing I've become more passionate about is to find. My dad was a regular, greatest generation sort of guy. and came home, and mom was a meatloaf and mashed potatoes sort of gal. Um, uh, what I have found is that non-alcoholic fatty tissue liver disease is now the fastest growing strain of liver disease in the country and on the globe.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes down to people not having a healthy lifestyle when it comes to diet, exercise, and the right balance in between. And so I keep thinking, if I didn't run my first marathon until I was 49, if I can help influence, encourage, motivate young people to embrace a healthy lifestyle, walking, running, jogging, biking, 10Ks like you did, everybody doesn't have to do a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole rate, I think instead of expanding the strain of fatty tissue liver disease, we can see a decline. So what I'm passionate about now is not just doing it in memory of my dad, but hopefully setting an example of a healthy lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. And that's not easy given all the processed foods that are happening all over the planet now. It's absolutely ridiculous. I was inspired by, I forgot her first name. Her last name is Means, Means. She was a doctor. She is a doctor, but she
Okay.
quit her her career as a full-fledged doctor to go out and educate people. And her and her brother now are extremely passionate about it. There's a lot of people out there pushing this,
Yes.
getting away from processed foods. And I don't push it, but I definitely have gotten away from it. I just won't eat that stuff. I'll have a little roll once in a while, but that's nothing.
I'm again, like you, I don't push it, but I've just made conscious decisions. No processed food, no white, no starch, and that sort of thing. Do I like my light beer? Yeah, but in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be leaving on Thursday to go run a race this weekend, and most people taper down. I ramp up. This is my third day in a row of knocking off 5 hours at the gym and in the pool today.
Okay.
And that's just kind of what works for me.
So you're serious.
Oh, very serious.
That's
Well,
amazing.
here's how serious I am, Dominic. I always tell people I'm just kind of an old guy with long hair who runs marathons now. Okay.
Yeah.
I have to, in order for me to hit Marathon 300 in April in Boston as a fundraiser for the American Liver Foundation, I've got to run 22 marathons in the next 30 weeks.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So let me get this straight. So your goal is to hit your 300th. Guys, think about this. 300th marathon since you were 45 years old.
49.
49, excuse me.
Yep.
So that's what? Less than 20 years.
Yeah, and I think I didn't do the math before this. I think it ends up averaging 12 to 15 marathons a year for the past 20 years.
Wow. That's incredible, man.
Here's the thing that I hope you and your listeners will find interesting. I made the decision. It took me 14 years to run my first 100. It took me 7 years to run my second 100 in Chicago. And in Chicago, our mutual friend, Harry Lunt, was there. He came up from St. Louis and cheered me on. So 14 years to run the first 100, 7 years to run the second 100. And in February of 23, I went public and said, at that point, I was at like marathon 227. I went public and said, I'm going to hit marathon 300 by April 2025. Well, the only way I could do that physically, mentally, and financially was to up my game. Now, I'm upping my game at 70 years old. And the only way I'm going to knock all that off is to start running 100 milers instead of just marathons. So I now, between now and April, I've run 700 milers so far in the past year and a half. And between now and April, I will run 4 more.
Wow. And you still have knees and feet and
And
hip.
no injuries.
Amazing. Okay, this is like, now my brain is like going, what in the heck do you eat? You've gotten off of the carbs and the processed foods. So just give me a little idea of what you're doing to
Um,
sustain this hobby.
yeah, a lot of fish and chicken, a lot of vegetables, a lot of salad, a lot of fruit. And fruit's got complex, ingredients and all that sort of stuff. Um, it's really just staying away from the comfort food sort of thing. I couldn't tell you last time I went, to a McDonald's drive-through. I'm a big believer in eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, dinner like a pauper, which is kind of the opposite of how most people eat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't eat anything after 7 o'clock at night. So it's just balance, and being disciplined.
Yeah,
Sure. Um, Cookies are a big vice, so I've got to be careful. Cookies are my vice.
I understand.
And you've got to do 5 hours of exercise today. You got to fuel the body. I mean, so you got to eat. You got to get protein in there with very little beef, quite honestly. Um, more lentils than I used to before. More green vitamins. Green spinach, lettuce, all that.
The cruciferous.
Lots of water.
Yeah.
Um, and good sleep habits. I think that's another thing that I never really appreciated before, but very seldom would I get less than 8 hours sleep a night. Now, I'm lucky that I'm retired and have the means to be able to do 5 hours of exercise today and sleep 8 hours tonight. So I'm mindful that I'm very appreciative about that.
Yeah. And I understand. Rest is so important because it rejuvenates. It rejuvenates. It
No
heals.
question.
Absolutely. And I never used to understand that either. I was just go, 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 for years and years. We all kind of fall into that category. But now that I'm retired, I definitely get more sleep, and I recover because I play tennis, I ride a bicycle,
Perfect.
and it does. I mean, that's when I get my best sleep is after a day of tennis or a day of riding my bike, and I recover because my legs need it.
And here's another thing, Dominic, that I do, and I'm fortunate that I have come to meet a number of dear people running marathons, and the ultra community is like ultra is anything past 26.2. Okay, so there's nothing like the ultra community. A number of people that you're showing in your other pictures are all ultra runners that are incredibly supportive of, we don't care where you finish, we just want you to finish.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, much younger than me, will say, we just hope that we can be running when we're your age. And how do you do it injury free? I do it because my exercise is all low impact. It's biking like you, it's swimming, it's treadmill with the elevation up, but only at a 3.3 miles an hour pace, which is pretty aggressive at a 15 elevation. And you always kid me about how many books did I read this week and that sort of thing. I read my books while I'm on the treadmill. So I knock off all those books. So I attribute a big part of my continuity and my ability and my confident plan, God willing, to run 22 marathons in the next 30 weeks to the fact that my exercise routine is low impact.
This stack of books is like, guys, if you haven't seen Jim's profile, his Facebook profile, this is like one of 100 stacks, maybe more. Every time I look, is like, I'm looking down this list. How many books are you actually? And you obviously have a library card.
And that's the key. Key's the library card. I just checked the other day because I'm ramping up for this race this weekend.
Uh-huh.
As of today, on what's the date today?
Today is the 23rd of September.
Yeah, as of today, I have read 24 books this month.
Wow.
But I do it when I'm exercising, and then it just makes the time on the treadmill disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. And it's a pretty wide range of topics, so it's very fulfilling in that respect.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yep.
You are definitely a disciplined kind of a guy. That's for sure. It takes that in order to do that, and with a purpose that is amazing. Now, let me just put up a couple of pictures here. Now you've shifted. So originally it was your father that was your impetus, and now you're supporting people that have liver problems from birth.
In this case, this is dear Whitley, 5-year-old Whitley, who had liver cancer detected a year and a half ago. Gets put on a wait list. The only way Whitley is going to survive beyond early childhood is with a liver transplant.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets put on, and I've come to learn this, and this is a big part of my passion now. On any given day in the United States, there are 500 kids under the age of 5 who need a liver transplant.
Are you kidding me?
500.
Oh, wow.
And so a dear friend of mine said, we understand what you're doing and doing for your dad, but the bigger issue and the bigger cause is liver disease. And I said, yes. Well, they introduced me to Whitley's family. And come to find, Whitley gets moved up on the liver transplant list. She goes in for surgery. 12 hours of surgery for a 5-year-old little girl.
Wow.
And my friend who introduced me to Whitley's family says, I wish we could do something for them. Well, I did my research, came up with the 500 kids, and I just started trying to think creatively. And we came up with, but we acknowledged and confirmed that not only would Whitley have to endure and survive the surgery, her family, they live in Palatka, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Palatka is north of Orlando, southwest of Jacksonville. Okay. They would have to undergo a year of follow-up of going from Palatka, hour and a half, to Jacksonville, 2.5 hours down to Orlando for a constant checkup and test. Sure enough, a week after Whitley's surgery, her body is starting to reject her new liver.
Oh.
Rush back into the hospital. Now, when you get rushed in and when you have to recover from surgery, particularly at this age, you got to hang around for about a week for tests and to make sure everything's working well. Well, you can't stay at the Ronald McDonald House all the time. There's just too much demand and none. So what we decided was we were going to do 5 weeks, kind of with the symbolism of 500 kids and Whitley being 5 years old. We were going to do 5 weeks of walks for Whitley. Walks with Whitley, we called it.
Okay.
All the money we raised would go directly back to Whitley's family to help offset the travel, the hotel bills, the gas, the meals when they are going to Jacksonville, to Orlando, back and forth. And we were able, over the course of 5 weeks, all supported by the local residents, and my friend and I did TV spots, and we were interviewed in the local radio station. We were able to help give the family $8,000 to help them with their family expenses, which otherwise would have come out of pocket.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Wow.
It was pretty neat.
Crazy. So this is like one story of so many. So I've got another. I hacked your Facebook profile, by the way.
It's okay.
And this is another one here. Who's this one?
As it works out, this young lady's name is Whitley as well.
Come on, Whitley.
Yes. Lives in Knoxville, Tennessee. Is a very outgoing gal and liked my story. And she says, She calls me Mr. Jim. Mr. Jim, how do I help tell people about living healthy? Kids eat junk food, all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Well, I said, Whitley, I am coming to Knoxville to run the Knoxville Marathon. This was maybe 2 years ago. And I said, here's the deal. You get a bunch of your friends and you come out and run just 1 mile with me. And I'm going to make sure you get a medal from the Knoxville Marathon. And I hope it will encourage you and your friends to maintain a healthy lifestyle. She has 10 girls show up with her. We run around the track 4 times. None of them dropped out.
That's cool.
I bestow Whitley with a medal, and we talk about it now all the time. And her parents, as I try and work my way toward Marathon 300, I'm trying to raise $100,000. Well, I don't have a bunch of friends on Wall Street, and that's, unlimited. They're not all independently wealthy. So you got to find creative ways to do it. And her parents have become, they are dear friends, and they become major supporters of helping my different ways to help raise money.
Mhm. Amazing.
It's
That
pretty
is
neat.
totally amazing. Okay, let's go over to one more here. I've got this little gal. I think it's a gal, or maybe it's a little boy.
Well, that's Whitley. That's Whitley after her surgery.
Oh, okay, got it. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you've got hundreds of stories.
I'm going to give you this story, which I think you and your viewers hopefully would find interesting. And if they're inclined to help support, that would be wonderful. As I take a look at how to try and spread this word about healthy living,
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to my alma mater at the University of New Hampshire and my national fraternity, ATO fraternity. When I was there in 73, graduated in 74, I was the president of the chapter. And quite honestly, we made John Belushi look like amateurs when it comes to Animal House. Okay.
Okay.
The chapter today is comprised of a very impressive group of young men. And they agreed, they signed, to them, doing philanthropy projects is very important. Back when I was there, all we cared about was, do we have enough money in the kitty to buy a keg of beer for the weekend?
Mm-hmm.
These guys, they want to set good examples. And they signed on that next weekend, we are doing a first of its kind in the history at the University of New Hampshire, where there are 12 fraternities and 8 sororities. We are doing the first ever fraternity sorority living joint philanthropic 5K event. That for just $15, students, members of the fraternity, members of the sorority, campus wide, live in dorms, any of your viewers who want to run virtually can go to www.atoUNH.com.
UN8.
UNH, H, like in help, like in Harry, University of New Hampshire,
Okay.
ATOUNH.com, and register. And we expect to have at least, we think, 250 runners for the first year we're going to be doing this.
Awesome. So it's ATOUNH.com.
Yes.
I've got it.
Yep.
I don't know if you can see it. Can you see
Perfect.
the scroll
Yes.
on the bottom?
Yep.
Okay, beautiful. So we'll leave that up there. People want to do that, so they can just they can go right there, boom, and they can sign up, do whatever they want.
And we're saying $15 is the minimum donation. If somebody's more inclined, great. But right now, 2 weeks in advance, so we're at 25% of our goal. And I think, given the fact that it's a university community, there'll be a lot of last minute surge. But we're pretty confident that we will get at least 250 runners. We have 3 corporate sponsors. Our goal is to raise $20,000.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm honored to be able to support you in that way. So folks, if you want to do that, if you want to support Jim and his purpose and his mission, go to that website that's scrolling down there and get your shoes on and go out there and run.
Run, walk, jog, bike, whatever you want to do.
Just get across the line.
Just get across the line. 5K. So
That's awesome.
3.1 miles, something like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go back a little bit in time.
Okay.
So you mentioned you grew up in Norfolk, Virginia.
Yes.
Your father was a Navy guy.
Yep.
I was a Navy guy.
I know that. I remember that. Yes.
Okay. So you were the, I don't know, you were the kid. Dad was in the Navy.
Yep.
Did you get to travel quite a bit when you were younger?
We weren't the typical military brats. Grew up in Norfolk, Virginia. Spent 3 years in Puerto Rico. Came back to Virginia, and it really wasn't the same, and so moved to New Hampshire. But I will attribute the military and moving to Puerto Rico for grades 6, 7, and 8 as being very influential in my life of wanting to embrace travel, take on new situations, meet people who you stay in touch with and develop a good bond with. I mean, let's go back to you and I and Harry meeting 11 years ago. Okay.
Yep.
Out of our group, it's you, me, and Harry. I don't stay in touch with everybody. And so that takes an effort, that takes time, that takes good connection. And I'll attribute my living and being all of a sudden from the comfortable surroundings of Norfolk, Virginia, and going to Puerto Rico as being a big part of that, embracing the unknown.
So it sounds so the way that we met was through an employer that got us into a project where we
Yep.
were talking about the
Customer service culture.
customer experience.
Yep.
Right. And so then you were hired because you have had a lot of years experience working as a hotelier.
Yep.
So tell us about that. Once upon a time,
Grew, and I'll be able to thread that to kind of my marathon story.
okay.
Started with a family organization in New England called Dunphy Hotel Group.
Okay.
Dunphy Hotel Group went on to become Omni Hotels.
I've heard of them.
And I went through maybe 11 years with them, 2 major hotels, one of which is the Omni Parker House in Boston, that up until COVID was the longest, the only continually operating hotel in America for like 140 years or something. They shut down during COVID for the first time in the hotel's history.
Mm-hmm.
From there, a general manager from Omni, who was kind of a swashbuckler, color outside the line sort of guy, made me a good offer. And this was in the late 80s before most people knew what boutique hotels were. And so I left the branded boxes of Omni Hotels and went to work with a group called Coastal Hotel Group, which just was a huge eye opener for me of these small, generally very upscale B&Bs to hotels of maybe 120 rooms, places like the Stein Eriksen Lodge in Deer Valley, Utah, places like the Chica Lodge in the Florida Keys. I mean, just outstanding, which was a huge eye opener for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for about 8 years. And then there was a lot of consolidation in the hotel industry. And the last thing that everybody needed was a VP, and I got cut. And then went on to say, I think I'm going to do this on my own. And I did my own independent consulting as Jim Miller Associates for 30 years.
Wow. 30. Incredible. I now I'm talking to myself thinking, why didn't I get a picture of you in your double-breasted suit?
Yes.
When you have that double-breasted suit on, dude, you look amazing.
But there aren't too many current pictures. Nowadays, it's me, a cap, a marathon jersey and a pair of shorts. Now, here's where I tie all that into, and you and I are a good example of this. I'm a stay in touch guy. Okay. In April 2025, 2 weeks before the Boston Marathon, one of my special guests who is coming is a guy named Bob Dunphy,
Okay.
a descendant of the Dunphy Hotel Group that I started with in 1978, who has gone on to be a very accomplished marathoner, very well known in New England. When I run Boston, it will be my 16th Boston Marathon.
Wow.
For him, it'll be his 35th consecutive.
30.
And 35.
Woo!
And for the past 9 years, he has been the race director for the Maine Marathon in Portland, Maine. And over that period of time, they have raised $17 million for Portland charities.
Wow.
It's-
Bravo.
yeah.
Bravo.
My other special guest will be a guy named Dave McGilvray. Dave was the race director for the Boston Marathon for at least 20, 25 years. He's the first person to have ever run transcontinental, ran from Oregon to Boston, crossed the finish line during the seventh inning stretch in Fenway Park. I met him maybe 9 years ago
Okay.
when he said, I always think back to finishing my transcontinental run at Fenway Park. I would love to run a marathon in Fenway Park. Long story short, he's a player in Boston. Everybody knows who Dave McGilvray is. He coordinated the first ever marathon inside an American League national ballpark, did it in Fenway. I was one of the 50 runners to do it. And he remembers me from that experience because I helped raise a fair amount of money for the Jimmy Fund. And when I called him a couple of months ago to say, would you be willing to help me and help come to a fundraiser 3 weeks before Boston? Of course, I'd be happy to.
Mhm.
He's coming.
That's great.
Yeah.
Heart, huh? What a huge heart. That's
Wow.
amazing, man.
The running community, particularly the ultra running community, is full of big-hearted people. That's for sure.
Mhm.
Yep.
Incredible.
Thanks.
So you've got through April, you've got September, you got October, November, December, January, February, March, April. So you've got 7 months.
Oh, and I didn't mention that in those 7 months, in November, I am off to run the 5-day, 5-stage, 100-miler race in the Himalayas.
Well, some people are really passionate.
Yep. Well, make one an experience of a lifetime. I'm doing it with a dear friend. I knock off 100. I knock off 100 miles, which is kind of the equivalent of 4 marathons, and I do it all in 5 days.
Right. So you're not running, my brain is like, you're going to run 100 miles. No, you're going to go.
The elevation is so high that they only let you do about 18, 20 miles a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, that's a lot.
And Harry and I always say it's all about the story. So it'll make for a good story.
It's always about the story.
Always about the story.
And the memories.
The next story that I'll leave you with, so that you and your viewers can keep me in mind. I leave Thursday because I have, as you see with my hat, I have the Liver Foundation recognize what I'm doing. And earlier this year, they named me their global ambassador.
Come on. Good.
Well, a big part of what they do is help raise money to fund research and fund grants and help with the liver donation process and all that sort of stuff. And so they called me and said, we have never done an international endurance fundraising event. Yeah, okay. We would like to do one, but we need somebody to kind of help lead the way. Okay, what are you getting at? Well, we would like to do it in Berlin. And Berlin is known as one of the top marathons in the world. This year it happens to be its 50th anniversary, so it's even more special. And so I'm not going to say I've led, but I have helped orchestrate. I signed on to do it. And I am now going to join this weekend a team of 14 people, all of whom had to raise X amount of money. And by the time we get there, we think collectively we will have raised $85,000. And we are all going to run the Berlin Marathon on Sunday.
That's awesome.
That's pretty neat. Pretty neat.
Dude, you're amazing.
Thank you, buddy.
So cool, man.
Thank you.
So cool. And you're doing great things. You've been doing it for a long time. I mean, I just can't even imagine the personal pride that you carry around.
I'm a very happy guy. I'm humbled and honored that I can still, every time I cross the finish line, as you'll see in the picture here with crossing the Keys, where I ran the Keys this May, and in the 16-year history of the Keys 100,
This one?
which is, yes, in the 16-year history of the Keys 100, it's generally recognized throughout the U.S. as the toughest 100-miler in the country because of the temperature.
Uh-huh.
It's Key Largo to Key West. This year, the heat index for the entire run, day and night, was 108 degrees. And you're talking to officially now the oldest finisher in the history of the race.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So, as your podcast, and you have such a great reputation of talking about the beauty and the story behind all of our life experiences, marathons have led to the Liver Foundation, have led to me helping raise money, have led to me helping little kids like Whitley, and trying to motivate and inspire people to adopt a healthy lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. That's truly an amazing and huge purpose.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the interest. Thank you for the friendship. Thank you for staying in touch. And truly, anybody who will go to our site and make a donation of any sort will be very, very, very much appreciated.
Absolutely. And I'm sure they will. So I've interviewed about 350 people, and I always ask this question
Okay.
as the last and final question. So
Yep.
This is one of those like mind expanding questions.
Okay.
I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. So just imagine that after we hang up this on this video, right, this interview, that every single person on the planet is going to watch this. So you have undivided attention of every single person on the planet. What would you like to say to humanity?
What a wonderful question. I'll give you a multi-part answer. Okay?
Do it. Take as long as you want.
I would say that if a simple guy like me can help, impact, and make a difference in even little Whitley, 5-year-old Whitley's life is good. If through that I am able, through my marathons, in memory of my dad, every time I cross the finish line, I point up to heaven and go, "This is for you, Dad." If the company that I have come to know and come to enjoy all adopt a healthy lifestyle and therefore spare themselves of all the dysfunctions in our wonderful medical community and all that sort of stuff, and go on to enjoy life to the fullest, as my 98-year-old mother is still doing now, it will all have been worthwhile. And so I think the bottom line of my answer to your very good global question would be, do not discount the impression and the difference you can make with your good intention, whatever that may be, to help motivate, influence, change, make an impression with others.
Right on.
Thank you, my friend.
Right on. And this is your ma. Oops.
Mom, who I'm spending the day with tomorrow, 98 years old, turns 99
Oh my God.
in January, suffers from severe dementia, and still can beat me at Scrabble.
Well, happy birthday to your mother.
I absolutely will convey it. I'll pass it on. Dominic,
Okay.
you're very kind. Very kind. Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. Anytime. I'm glad to help. Enjoy. And we'll talk to you real soon, man.
Absolutely will. Love you, brother. Take good care.
You too. Take care. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.